What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I wanted to put this in the beginning. Of course, we are coming to you live from Gotham Production Studios, which is our home here for X Drinking Buddy. Remember to subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. You can also follow on social media at X Drinking Buddy on Instagram, Twitter, and follow me at Brennan T Comedy on all social media. Check out BrennanTComedy.com for the upcoming shows. And don't forget to get your X Drinking Buddy merch. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Boom. That's it. Easy peasy.
Grab me a beer and grab me a coke. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your X Drinking Buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do. Hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do, hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Sam Kochman!
Should I cheer for myself? It feels appropriate.
You can.
All right. Yeah, that was my cheering for myself. That was the enthusiasm you're getting.
What's up?
Oh, just not much. Can't wait to talk to you.
Yeah,
It's
it's gonna be fun. We've had this in the works for a little while.
Yeah.
We met at Greenwich Village Comedy Club.
And we've canceled 6 times since. So we made it.
You've canceled 6 times?
I did not.
I'm kidding. Okay.
I actually think you rescheduled over
I
me.
rescheduled
Just
the
for the
last
record,
one.
everyone, it was not me.
We were, this is probably one of my favorite things because I had Maggie Naughton on, and I can't not say her name without a Boston accent.
That's
And
funny.
I had her on because of the conversation we had, and I told her about this in the green room, as it were, when she was on stage talking about being sober. And I looked at you and I go, oh, she's sober? And you went,
What did she say?
She laughed. She was like, she's like, well, yeah. I mean, and then we talked about it, obviously, but I love.
Did she claim that she was sober for this?
No.
Okay.
She was
I'm like,
very.
I don't want to. I'm not
No,
trying
she was very open about
Okay.
how she took a year off of drinking
Yeah.
and then like everything that kind of transpired
Recovered.
after that and before that. But I met you, her, and a few other comics that I've had on. That's the thing. It's weird because I love stand-up more than anything, but I hate cutting clips of my stand-up to post and the listeners know this because they've heard the episode, but me and a few other like bigger comics were like huge, like Joe List and Derek Gaines. Like we were talking about this because they're just like, yeah, like I don't like that's for the hour. That's for my like the people who come to see me.
That's what it used to be, at least. Yeah.
That's what it used to be. And then it was funny because I was re-listening to the List episode. And he's like, I sound like 100-year-old man because I'm like, no.
Back in the day,
Yeah. Because he was like, no, I saved that for a special. And he was talking to like a 20-something and they were like, what are you talking about? Like, no, you put the clips out, you get a following. And then that's how you sell tickets.
I would say that a result of the old school thinking in modern times, I won't name names, but there was just a big Netflix special released of someone who got famous based on crowd work clips.
Yes.
And no one actually liked the stand-up material.
No, the stand-up was pretty bad.
Yeah, but the crowd work clips...
Did you watch it?
I didn't bother, you know?
Can I be honest with you?
I shouldn't.
Neither did I. It was one of those things where everyone was talking about it, and I had seen the first special, and I didn't really like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I didn't really like it. I was like, this isn't what we're doing. The funniest thing is that person tweeted out, can people stop interrupting at my shows? And I was like, you did this.
And also, you got $30 million because you did this. So, like, don't complain.
And also, it's like, you are almost solely responsible for this in the beginning.
So true. Like the virality and like the intentional shift to that.
This was your thing.
Yeah.
And then everyone started copying it because it went viral. And now you're upset about it.
It's so true.
And you're not even doing fucking stand-up anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, but to your point, like that is how it shifted. And now I love doing the podcast and I love doing shows, obviously. But one of the side benefits is I get to meet great comics and be like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? And then we'll just cut clips from there. Like
you're just doing stand-up to get your pipeline for your podcast. I see you. It's okay.
That's almost how it feels because I'll have friends who come into town and they're like, hey, can you get me on shows? I'm like, I can't get me on shows.
But like, I will put you on a podcast.
If you want to come on. Hey, that happened with Cam Patterson and now he's like the biggest star ever.
So fun.
He came through before he moved to Austin and a friend was like, you got to have him on. And I was like, I don't know him. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't like having people on that I've never met because it's like a weird dynamic. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just to see them at a show and like watch their stand up and go, oh, they're funny. Like, I'd love to have them on. Like, going in blind is a weird thing.
Yeah.
And I had him on, and it was a great episode. And then he moved to Austin and crushed Kill Tony. And now he's at like 1 million followers on Instagram. And I was like, yeah, I'll just cut those old clips up and we'll send those out into the world now.
I love how that's all of our measure of success too now. Like, no, they're a big comic. Like, they have X million followers. It's like, it's
embarrassing.
Yeah, it's just, we're all, but it is the business, you know? Like, there's an art part of it, and the business part of it is you got to get booked, and the people who are getting booked are the people who have followers.
Yeah, and everything has just turned into a giant bringer.
Yeah, I think
clubs are like, yeah, you can play our club. Can you bring a ton of people? It's like, yeah, look at my followers.
I think like a lot of Hollywood has turned into that where like they won't even consider actors, which is crazy because it has nothing to do with your ability, right? Like,
it's so nuts to me because I put out the one-man show and I was really proud of it, and I am very proud of it. And like, people who watch it almost universally say this is so powerful. Like, I cried. Like, I didn't think this would move me the way it did. And that makes me feel really good. But then when I talk to other people who have done one-person shows, it's the same thing I keep hearing, which is, oh, I put it out, but I already had a following, which is why it changed my career. Because I was like, oh, I'll put this out, and it's very quality. I'll send it to like managers and bookers. But it's one of those things where they're like, yeah, this is great, but nobody's seen it.
Who are you?
Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, but you just said it was good. Like, what is happening?
But then they like... No one has to put marketing dollars into Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
like, she has her own marketing machine and scale down from there. Like,
I just did a bonus episode about talking about Travis Kelce because I waited on him.
I could do the entire thing. We can spend the next hour talking about the two of them.
Really? Are you a
God.
Swiftie?
Oh, big time. And also I'm obsessed with them together. I am so obsessed with them that I'm unironically watching football on Sundays.
Wow.
Alone. Like, this is not like me going to hang out with pals at a bar. I am on my couch watching football games, including playoff games that have nothing to do with the Chiefs. Like, it has gotten very out of control. Things have spiraled. And now I spend my Wednesday morning watching my favorite brain injured brothers on their podcast. Actually, it came out today because they recorded one in Las Vegas, so it was a day behind.
Yeah,
haven't watched it yet.
That's interesting. I just did a bonus episode about how Travis Kelce is kind of a dick.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, this is the response I get from Swifties all the time.
No, I don't believe it. What do you mean a dick? Like, in what way?
Well, I mean, listeners, you're gonna have to go subscribe on Patreon to get the bonus episode, but. It was just one of those things. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but it was one of those things where a lot of people are like, he's so nice. He's so nice. And I go, yeah, well, this is how he's acting on his podcast or in front of the cameras. But it's my belief, and this is why I started doing the show, and I had to put it behind a paywall because at some points I talk shit about very famous people I've waited on.
Yeah.
Because I've worked in nice restaurants for like a decade. I've been in restaurants for 20 years.
That's such good gossip.
And my whole thing is people will show you who they really are with how they treat people who are there just to serve them.
You think that's your thing?
Well, I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
But like my idea for doing it was that. It was like, oh, all these people think, you know, so-and-so is so cool, but I actually have personal experience where it was my only job was to serve them, and they were still assholes, which is like, my job is to make you happy, and you're being a dick. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then I've had other people, like Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory, one of the sweetest people in the whole world. Henry Winkler, awesome.
That makes sense, too.
Yeah, Channing Tatum, Zoe Kravitz came in on a date night.
Ooh.
I invited them to a bringer show. That was embarrassing.
No way.
Yeah, I talk about it on stage, but
They didn't go.
No, they didn't go. I'm really bad at boundaries, and as a server, you can steer the conversation.
Yeah.
So they had said something about New York, and I was like, oh, I should check that out. I just moved here, knowing that the next thing they would say is,
what do you do?
What brought you to New York? And I go, oh, I'm a comic. And then they're like, we love comedy. I was like, you guys should come to a show. And I think this is when I had like the industry room or something. And I was like, I have a show next Saturday.
That is hilarious.
And they were like, oh, we're kind of busy. And I was
Imagine
like,
them sitting through a 2.5 hour industry room show. They'd be like, what the fuck? Like, that is hilarious. Yeah, that's maybe like the worst case scenario of if they actually showed up. You shouldn't be embarrassed. You should feel so lucky they did not show up, because the embarrassing thing would have been them sitting through an industry room show,
because those shows are 2 hours something long.
They are
an
an experience.
Yeah, it's but Travis was just not. He wasn't mean,
but he wasn't overly kind.
It was a respect thing is what it came down to. The lack of respect he had for everyone
fascinating
in the restaurant except him and his like teammates and coaches was mind-blowing.
Whoa.
So again, it wasn't a mean thing, but it was just
That's different than I would have expected. Like,
Yeah.
Taylor runs around the stadiums when she's there, like, for his games, like, handing out $100 bills to, she'll be like, do you work here? And then, like, just
and
hand out
everything I've
cash.
heard about Taylor is that she's super
Gracious and generous.
Well, she'll
Yeah.
like, people will come up and be like crying, like,
Yeah.
we love you. She's like, let's do a selfie.
But also, that's her whole brand. Like, this empire is built on the fact that, like, she has $1 billion and we're all still like, oh, like, it's Taylor Swift.
I know.
Like,
I heard. Someone was
we
talking
love
about it the
her.
other
Like,
day.
she's just like me. Everything's so relatable.
She's
It's
a
like,
billionaire.
She's a billionaire with multiple private jets who just, like, jets around day to day between time zones with her entire, like, crew that works for her. Yeah.
But she's a sweetheart.
She's also a marketing genius.
Yes. And all I'm saying is that I have no ill will, especially Jason. Jason's the nicest person in the world.
When did you meet Travis?
This was in 2018. So this was Patrick Mahomes' first year as the starting quarterback.
Okay, second year on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, you really have researched this.
It's so
Holy
fucking embarrassing.
shit.
No, I haven't researched it. Like, I might be autistic. I'm 5 feet of worthless information. And now a lot of that is football, you know? Like, I have so much football information.
Please tell me you say that on stage, 5 feet of worthless.
No, I've never said that on stage. It's just how I pitch myself. It is my description,
and that's
you know?
the title of the episode.
Perfect. I love that. I'm a human Snapple cap. What do you want to know?
But yeah, so it was 2018, and we got to get off it. But he's
No, we don't.
Hall of Fame kind of a player. Everyone knows that. He's fantastic. But it's just that thing where, and again, this is when they were like starting that run of like greatness.
The dynasty.
Yes.
In the making.
So I understand. And to be, because I was a Division I athlete, which is the highest level you can play in college.
Okay, way to bury the lead.
So I understand that to play football at that level, you have to have something more than what even the guys I played with had.
Yeah.
And that was a D1 football. And so I get all of that. But it's like, you don't have to like I'll give you one little thing that happened. And then I want the listeners to go and actually listen to the episode.
Yeah, go pay.
But like he walked in and had his hat on. This is when he was with his ex, the very, very pretty
Kayla.
Yeah.
Kayla Nicole.
This is insanity. But he walked in, she's on his arm, had his sunglasses on.
Did they seem like they liked each other?
Well, this is the thing. He didn't seem like he liked anybody except his boys because they walked in still wearing the white. He was wearing a white blazer. And he would do things where he wouldn't. Like, as the server, I'm like waiting for him to sit down and I'll take care of him. But he's kind of just walking around and he wouldn't address anyone that worked there. He would just be like, man, I'm thirsty. Can I get a water? Like, just out into the ether. He'd be like, yo, let me get a water. Can I get a water? Which is fine, but it's also like.
It's fine in a locker room when you have equipment managers.
As, excuse me, could you grab me a water, please? And
you think excuse me is too big of a word for him?
I don't know. I don't want to.
No, I love that he's a little himbo, you know? He's just, there's nothing but football up there.
Yeah, oh yeah. And he's very good at it.
Oh yeah, but
also like.
That's it.
When you go out in public, like and that's the thing that bothers me is because when the cameras are on, he's smart enough to be like, action. Like, I turn it on. But that's the thing that bothers me. And that's why I love doing this series is like, there's no cameras. It's just him and his teammates. They feel comfortable. And it's my job to do that. But like, if you're going to act like this, don't think there are no repercussions. Like, this is the modern
And the repercussions are you talking about it behind your
talk
Patreon.
Shit behind a paywall.
Like, what are the repercussions? He's dating Taylor Swift.
Behind a paywall.
And he's like one of the most famous people in the world
That's
right
true,
now.
but people need to know.
People need to know.
And one day,
I love him.
I will blow up. And that'll come back.
Except, like, maybe you met him on a bad day.
That's true. And I oh my God, I said that like 19 times. And I was like, listen, because my girlfriend is a Swiftie. A lot of her friends are Swifties. And whenever I bring this up, they have a similar reaction to you because they go, oh, we love Travis.
We all, like, everyone's thrilled about it because it seems like he's treating her so well.
Yeah.
And I could expand on that. But, like, if he's not, that changes everyone's opinion of this. Like, the reason everyone's like, we love it so much is because she's never had someone who is like actually this kind publicly. And I keep saying, like, I hope he is this way privately.
Yeah.
But if he's not,
I played football for a long time. Kindness isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think of them in relationships.
Yeah.
And how many times have we been in relationships where we're not ourselves for the first 3 months, 6 months, year?
Yeah,
4
I
years.
fell for one of those.
I played the cool guy for like 4 years, and then
Four years?
Well, with my ex, because I came from my ex-fiance and I had a very codependent relationship.
Yeah.
So when we broke up, 4 years passed, long story short, I get sober, and then I started dating someone else. Obviously, I dated people in between, but like then I started and I was like, oh, I really like this person. And she was the complete opposite. Super independent. Like, you do you, I'll do me. Like, we'll meet, if we have time to get together, we will. And I was playing this person that wasn't me, where I was like, yeah, that's totally.
Cool, yeah.
Like, I got stuff going on. And then like there would be times where I would text her and then I wouldn't hear back from her for like a day. And this is like when we started dating. But I had to play like, oh yeah, I don't care. Like, go out with your friends. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. And it ate me alive every single time it happened.
Oh,
but I had to play like, nah, it's cool. And then there's...
You didn't, but you
I
chose
didn't.
to.
I tried so hard to do it. And there were times where I'd blow up and be like, how the fuck can you be out? How can you text me at like 8 o'clock, like, hey, I'm going to go out after work, and then not return any of my texts and then come stumbling home at 6 a.m? Like, that's not
a relationship.
That's
either.
not okay.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, it's cool. Like, you went out with your friends, whatever. Like, you don't have to report to me. I'm not your keeper.
Yeah.
But then in my head, I was like, I kind of want to be your keeper. But let's talk about you. Plug everything. We almost forgot. We're 10 minutes in. Plug everything, all your social media, the whole thing.
My social media is just my name. Find me there. I'm Sam Kochman. It's not spelled how you think it is.
Koch.
Yep. MAN. You nailed it.
I've got it written right here.
I have a great show. I don't know. Are your listeners in New York? What's going on here?
Yeah, I've got out of the 7,500, I've got some in New York, some in Florida, and then some in California.
Okay. If you're in Florida, move.
Hey, you're from Florida.
It's my Scarlet F. Don't bring that up here. Don't bring that up on the record.
You would be surprised how often I tell people I moved here from Florida, and New Yorkers go, why? Yeah. Everyone's moving to Florida.
Yeah, I get that, but that's really a tax response, not people who know what it is.
When I moved here and they took 50% out of my...
It's not 50%, but it is rough.
It was up
It's
there.
certainly a high 35, at least.
At least.
Yeah.
Well, and especially because I started working at the restaurant in the wintertime when our gross it's like stupid. But we make like a third of our income in 3 months. Or in 2 months. And then your
tax withheld against that value.
Yes. So I'm getting taxed as if I make $250,000 a year. Yeah. But it's just one of those things. When you get your check and it says $3,500 gross and it's like $1,600 on the actual check, you're like, the fuck is going on?
My first job out of college, I started working the end of July.
In New York?
No, in Seattle.
Okay.
So no state income tax either. But not crazy Floridians. But I remember that year for taxes, I got like a great refund. Never happened again.
I've talked to, I probably shouldn't put this on a record, but I've talked to like people I work with because last year I only got like $180 back, and I was like, I paid
did too.
So much in taxes. And then I have a buddy who was like, I got a guy in the Bronx, he gets you at least $2,500 back, and I was like, that sounds super illegal.
Yeah,
like you got a boat, right? We'll write that off. You got a boat.
Have you done yours this year?
No, not yet.
Me neither. But apparently, people are getting hit more this year because of the 2017 Trump tax bill.
Oh, really?
That was sunsetted to start basically taxing middle class this year. So, yeah.
You know, I did a lot of things.
That's not terrible.
I get that a lot. Thank you.
The hands.
It's all about the hands. You know, I say all the time.
That's good. That's pretty good.
Some say it's the best. We're coming for you, Shane.
Does anyone say it's the best?
No, nobody says it's the best. Let's talk about you, though.
Sure.
So you do comedy here in the city?
I do comedy here in the city.
How did you end up doing comedy here in the city?
I lived in Seattle before I moved to New York for a long 4 years. And don't go. A long weekend in the summer. Don't go for any longer. I had a bad relationship that I fled the city from, essentially. I checked him into rehab, and then I packed all my shit in 4 days, and I left. We had already broken up when I brought him to rehab. I'm nice. But
I've been there.
You're like, it was actually me. She drove me to rehab. But then I moved to New York post-pandemic, and I was like a shell of myself because... Where
were you living between that time?
Oh, I went home to Florida for a few months, for like 7 months with my mom, and it was lovely. I was in like basically acting like a retired person, like playing tennis.
Well, that was I had friends in obviously New York and LA doing this. doing entertainment and stuff like that. So when the pandemic hit, I obviously was in Florida. I didn't move here till 21.
Oh.
We were supposed to move in 2020, but then obviously pandemic and that got scrubbed. So I would be on Zoom calls, like with a podcast network that I was working with at the time and stuff. And they would be in New York and LA and they'd be like, no, we're still in lockdown. And I was like, really? I got to be at work and I work in restaurants. I was like, I have to be at work at like 5:00 tonight.
Yeah.
We shut down in March. I tell people all the time, we shut down in March. I was back to work in July.
So Seattle shut down. You were back in July?
Yeah.
Damn. Seattle
July
shut down?
8th, I got a call and they were like, hey, you ready?
Not me. Definitely not me. Seattle shut down 2 weeks ahead of the East Coast.
Really?
Because the first cases, if you remember, were in that Kirkland nursing home in Washington.
Came from the other side, yeah.
And that's when everyone was like, it's just the nursing home. It's just the nursing home. And then the first case outside of the nursing home was someone in my work building.
Oh, my God.
So who had just been to China and back.
And they were like, shut it down.
And so when that person got a positive test, I heard a rumor about it. And I sent home I told my pregnant colleague, I was like, get the fuck out of here and don't come back.
Yeah.
And then I took all my stuff and left the office. And then they shut down. It must have been either the end of February or first couple days of March.
Wow.
But then I just spent 2 weeks panicking, trying to tell my family, no, this is really happening.
This is a real thing.
You cannot fly from Florida to Grandma and Grandpa in New York right now. Do not host a 90th birthday party right now. I'm begging you not to do this.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't cancel anything until it hit the New York Times.
Wow.
And then I was like, fuck you. I've been trying to tell you.
Well, that's the other thing, too, is I remember, because I studied American history and political science. So, these end of days events.
Yeah.
And I mean, Men in Black says it the best. The world's always ending. It's always something.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
In a way.
But the Cuban Missile Crisis, everyone's like, oh, this is it. Nuclear war. World War II, obviously, everyone's like, this is it. The world's over.
My family was certainly saying that, but that's because they were in Germany and we're Jewish. So, it was a bit of a different world-ending kind of vibe.
But the world is always ending. There's always something where you're like, this is it. This is going to. So I remember seeing on the news the cases coming out in Wuhan.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the news going, oh, the news is going to blow this up because that's how they get ratings. But because especially coming from Florida, every hurricane, this is the biggest hurricane we've ever seen.
Yeah, that's fair.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's it's always catastrophizing because that's what gets ratings. So I remember watching it, and we can all roll our eyes, and hindsight is 20/20 after what happened. Mm-hmm. But I remember seeing the first couple cases, and they're like, this is spreading at a crazy rate or whatever. And I remember watching going, they always say, this is it. This is and it never is. So I was like, I don't buy it. And then when the cases hit the United States, I was like, what? Oh, it's happening. It's happening.
I knew starting in December of the previous year, I was working in a computers business at the time where obviously everything was coming from Asia. All the I managed the accounts Samsung and Nvidia, all of the PC companies. And starting in, I think, November, we were talking about it saying if this happens, there's going to be a huge production backlog. People won't be able to go to work. They're saying it's really bad. Yeah, at the end of 2019. Wow. And so I was placing large bets on inventory in December, knowing that it was coming. So I looked amazing by March, you know, I looked fucking phenomenal by then.
Wow.
But I basically bought up inventory for a quarter ahead of time, knowing that this was probably happening.
Yeah.
And so by the time it hit the US, I was like, oh, there it is. Yes. This is what we've been talking about.
Yeah, because especially, I think the hurricane thing is the best analogy that I have to make it clear to people. Because growing up in Florida, it was always the end of days. Category 4, it's going to destroy everything.
And usually it destroys somewhere. It just doesn't destroy everywhere.
It does break some stuff. I remember even Matthew was really bad because I never left.
Was that? I don't remember the names.
Well, so I never left for hurricanes. In fact, I got my second DUI during a hurricane at a Walmart parking lot.
In a Walmart? That's tough.
I ran out of because the year before my restaurant that I was working at didn't close.
Yeah.
And we lost power and all the food went stale and we couldn't serve anybody. So then fast forward a year, there's another big category 4 coming. So they're like, we're going to get ahead of it. We'll close down because there was people threatening to sue the company because then they couldn't get home because the year before.
Yeah.
So they shut down for 5 days. By day 2, I ran out of booze and I was like, oh, this sucks. And now the hurricane's barreling down. So but it's for anyone who hasn't been in a hurricane, I've been in a lot. And unless you're at the wall, the wall of the eye, it's a lot of, it's bad. It's rainy and windy and you always lose power and it sucks. but it's not like this whole you can't go outside kind of a thing if you're a crazy Floridian like I am. So I drove to Walmart to get more booze.
During the eye or like
No. This is like a band.
Okay.
Like it's literally just like raining.
Okay.
But everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, I've done this a million times. Yeah. Like this is
You're so unfazed.
I'm like, what are we doing? So I get to Walmart and they're like, no, we're closing. Category 4 hurricane, we're closing. And I was like, I'm drunk. I'm like, just let me run in and get my I know where it is.
So they called the cops on you?
They called the cops on me.
No.
The cops show up and she was like, you live a mile away, walk home. She goes, if you get in your car, I'm going to give you a DUI.
And you wouldn't walk home.
Well, I walked behind the store and I waited till she left. And I thought she left, and she didn't. She just went on the other side of the parking lot. I didn't see her, got in my car. As soon as I closed the door, didn't even start the car. She knocked on the window. She's like, you're under arrest for driving under the influence. You can't be behind the wheel. You're not even you
can't be in the driver's seat.
The law is you cannot have operational control of the vehicle, which is left to interpretation.
Yeah. So. I guess the reason it's not left to interpretation, because imagine you like pulling off to the side of the road and being like, I'm not driving.
Yeah. That's like, well, that's what a lot of people do. Or they'll leave the keys in the car, but then they'll like lay down and think like after 10 minutes they're good and get up and drive. And it's like, that's not how that works.
No.
Like, you're not allowed. But that's how I honestly, when I saw the news coming out, I was like,
it's just a hurricane.
I was like, it's just a hurricane. This is just a hurricane.
My whole family was the same way. Yeah. I just happened to be.
Gang, Florida represent.
Yeah. I just happened to be on the other side, you know?
Yeah. So that happens. And then when did you end up moving? So then you go spend some time in Florida?
Yeah. And then I moved to New York August of 2021.
Oh, wow. So we were here like the same time.
Yeah.
July of 2021.
Oh, nice. I was technically here in like June, July, but I was with my grandparents on Long Island. So I wasn't in the city until I wasn't like living in New York.
It's like Florida light, Florida North.
Yeah.
Long Island.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't get away from it. As much as you don't like it, you can't get away from it.
No. Yeah, I can't get away from any of it.
It's like your ex.
Yeah. So with him, basically, I was in a very bad relationship. I later realized it was fully an abusive relationship. And by the time I moved to New York, I was like, oh shit, I don't know anything about myself. I have no idea what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I don't know what should I be doing?
You don't know who Sam is.
Yeah. Like one day I was like, oh, I'll try taking like a comedy writing class. And so I took a class.
How did you?
As a hobby.
That's what I want to ask, because this is something that I find fascinating with all of my guests.
Yeah. Comedy
itself is such a niche thing. Entertainment in general is kind of like most people look at it and they go, I don't even know how to start that. So for you, you said you were trying to find yourself. So were you doing a lot of different things? Like were you like doing rock climbing and biking? And
yeah, sure. I was doing like a lot of different things, but I was trying to like see like a hobby beyond like exercising or like walking around or like whatever things I enjoy doing that aren't real.
So you
hobbies.
Stumbled upon a comedy and writing
So
class.
I like Googled it. I was like, I'll try like a stand-up writing, like a comedy writing class. I took that and it was just a hobby, but that came with like a show at the end.
Yeah.
And so I did my first 5-minute set and I walked off stage and I was like, oh fuck, like gotta do that.
Yeah.
This is not a hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
did you know anything about stand-up prior? Like, were you listening to podcasts or did you watch stand-up clips?
I mean, I've always been a fan of some comics.
Yeah.
Like growing up, I have been a lifelong fan of Chelsea Handler forever. Yeah. Like watched her show, watched Chelsea lately on E! Like growing up as like a child, I was reading her books like young, probably too young. So I was always like comedy interested. I would watch SNL, but I never thought I could be part of that. Like it never even crossed my mind that I would be part of it. More like, comedy's my coping mechanism and I enjoy comedy as entertainment, not like I'm going to be a comic.
Yeah, that was always the thing was, and I mean, I have to talk to my girlfriend now about it because she's a civilian. So a lot of times, she's a school teacher. So a lot of times things will happen.
Yeah.
Tragic things will happen. And my knee-jerk reaction to cope with tragedy is to make a joke.
Always.
And that's what I do. And there was a couple times where I did it and she was like, shocked, like genuinely, like, how could you say that? And I was like, I did. So we actually had to sit down and have a conversation because she's never dated a comic. So I'm like, listen, this is how I respond. Like when
it's how you cope.
Yeah, and when a doctor, and I say it all the time, and I say it in the one-man show, but when I gave myself severe alcohol poisoning and was dying, a doctor walked in and saw me awake and goes, you shouldn't be alive right now. And I looked him right in the eye and I go, I've been training for this my whole life. Like when faced with death, I make like, that's just how I cope with things. And it has been a massive adjustment. Tracy's the best. She's like, okay, I get it. So now when I do it, she'll just kind of look at me and then just keep going. like how some audience members do,
Yeah.
but like she's definitely become accustomed to it. But the first couple of times when you don't see that coming and you're not used to it, it can be startling.
One time I was in New York with my ex and we had to fly to another state because his dad needed like emergency surgery. He was fine. And we flew there, and as we're about to walk into the hospital room, meanwhile, I've had to sit on a flight across the country with this man chugging drinks the whole time, sobbing in his seat in first class on a Delta flight. No, don't say aw. It's completely inappropriate. His dad was fine. And we... So it's just like I was just, I was a parent the whole time in retrospect.
I've had to do that with my... Never mind.
With your parents?
Yeah. I didn't say that. She said it.
Oh, I've definitely
just
had
there's
to
sometimes
raise my
where you're
parents.
like, what's happening right now?
Not even sometimes. Like I had to give my mom a 3-hour therapy session 2 weeks ago, starting at 10 p.m. And then 2 days later, she called me and she was like, you know what? I thought about what you said. And I think you really fixed me. I was like, well, that's a one-way street, bitch, because it didn't fix me.
It's a highway and a bike path. I have the bit on stage about having the cool mom, but it's like, when you have to hold your mom's hair back in your dorm room while she throws up in your dorm room toilet, you're like, there's something very backwards about
this is tough.
this.
Yeah, my mom was also an alcoholic. Recovered.
But on the flight,
or no, walking into the hospital room, basically, he stops me and he's like, don't do what you do. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, don't go in there and start cracking jokes to try and make people feel better. And I said, so you think I'm funny?
That's the most rewarding thing.
Yeah.
Is when, because I do the Trump thing a lot. When Tracy and I first started dating, she didn't even think about it, about the vaccine and the COVID thing and all that stuff.
What do you mean think about it?
I'm from Florida.
You didn't get vaccinated?
Of course I did.
You weren't going to. Whoa.
Let's not get into it.
I would take a dose a day that they could fucking blow dart into my neck as a drive-by. I am like, give me every vaccine under the sun.
So I obviously got vaccinated, and then I got a booster, and then I think I even got a second booster.
I'm still going. I got my most recent one in October with my flu shot. Oh, yeah. Wow. I'll do it forever.
Well, I never got a flu shot. I was never a flu shot guy either.
Give me any vaccine. I'll take them all.
But it was interesting because we had started dating. We had been like seeing each other for like a month. So naturally, she's in love. No, I'm kidding. But it was,
no, you're not.
we were the narcissism.
Like it actually only takes like 3 days typically. So like a month is plenty of lead time.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So we're at her apartment, and she said, and I was doing the Trump voice. I can't wait for 2024. Daddy's coming home. Everybody can relax. And she again, we just started talking. She was like, what are you doing? Like, did you vote for Trump? I was like, that's none of your business.
Did you?
As a comic, you can't stop the bit.
No, but did you?
So I'm like, that's none of your business.
You did.
That's none of your business.
The lack of response is the fucking response. Did you twice?
I did not.
Okay. That's somewhat redeemable. I still, it still hurts me a little bit, but it's somewhat redeemable to not do it twice.
So I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't vote for him at all. That's the funniest thing. I didn't.
You just didn't vote.
It says Democrat on my ID.
So you don't have to vote for your party.
No, I know that. But I'm saying like in the primaries, I vote for the anyway.
You don't vote in a primary.
I didn't.
Do you?
I'm studying political science. I always vote. The first thing I did when I moved to New York was register to vote in my area.
I'm still registered in Florida. Cut that out because it's a federal crime.
So you come at me. This is the problem with the liberals. Because you come at me sideways.
I'm a fucking Florida voter. Like my New York vote doesn't count.
Come at me sideways and you don't even vote up here.
No, I vote in Florida. And
you actually do vote back home.
I have for the 10 years that I have since I haven't had a primary residence since graduating from high school. Oh, so you just kept... Well, it's legal through college, right? Because that's still my primary residence. So I should stop talking about this. But I need to change it for this round. I've hit... Also, Florida's red now. Like my vote is not...
almost completely
giving
red.
up that Palm Beach County swing vote, though, that was...
Duval just actually voted Democrat for the first time in like 40 years or 60 years.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a big deal because Duval County is one of the biggest counties.
What do you think of DeSantis?
I'm so upset about the whole situation because it used to be not for the reasons you think. Actually, I'm going to go the other way. Plot twist as my, it used to be you're from Florida, you're a crazy person.
Yeah.
And that I could get with because I have a scar on my forehead from a fight I got into and I cut my own face. I've been arrested 8 times. I smoke Newport cigarettes. I am a crazy person.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I get it. Bipolar 2. I've been diagnosed with. I am not mentally sane. Having said that, the stigma that now comes with Florida is not crazy. Now it's you're homophobic, you're racist, you're,
so
transphobic.
pro-life that you're stupid.
Yeah, and it's like, I could get down with the crazy thing because I am crazy. Like, that's
You don't want to ban books.
Like, Florida man, like, But then, and I was actually, the reason I'm so heated about this is because I was just talking to a buddy of mine about this like the other day because he had made a joke. I didn't get jury duty. And he goes, oh, what'd you say you were from Florida and they knew you were a racist? And I was like, when the fuck did this start?
I got jury duty in Florida last December. You just reminded me. And I just never even responded.
Oh, really?
Do you think I'm going to get arrested?
No, I gotta, you can like not go the first couple of times. I got a must serve though. So I showed up. But that was the thing was like, because of what DeSantis and the legislation has done, banning books, don't say gay, like all this fucking terrible shit, it's now not, oh, you're from Florida, you're crazy. It's you're from Florida, you're transphobic, you're homophobic, you're racist.
You're a bad person.
Like, and it's like, I could get down with the crazy thing because I am crazy. But like this, I'm like, you guys are fucking with everyone's shit now.
Totally.
And so I am against all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you think of him dropping out of the race?
I think he didn't have a fucking chance to begin with.
I know. You think he was so happy to take off his high heels? You think he like ripped him off right after he
just
suspended
throw him
the
across
campaign?
The room?
Like classic night out, like take him off, toss him.
Is that what you girls do?
Feet land and you're like, I don't know. I haven't worn fucking heels in years, but it's like a pre-pandemic me. But yeah, in theory, you're like, because it feels different, and then when it's released, it's
you're
like
tiptoeing.
For hours.
I couldn't imagine.
And like he just learned as a 40-something-year-old man how to walk in heels. It's probably been a tough adjustment for him.
As someone who's done a few drag shows, I can tell you it is not fun to walk in heels.
It takes an adjustment.
It does.
Yeah.
But I'm a natural athlete. I got it down.
But yours weren't like custom fitted for your feet to make it look like you weren't wearing heels.
No, and also
he's special.
But those are probably more comfortable than like trying
That's
to.
That's what I mean. They're probably quite comfortable.
Like a Nordstrom Rack brand of heels that you got at the last minute. Because you're like, I gotta fucking win this drag show.
And because like no one else sells any large sizes that you can,
It was bad.
Yeah.
So you do the first show.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I'm doing this?
Yeah.
Did you adjust accordingly like your whole life?
No.
Okay.
I just like signed up for another class and like started doing open mics and like started like writing.
Yeah.
And I would say for the past year and a half, I've been actually trying to like.
So what happened with the Greenwich Village thing? Like
how did I end up there?
Yeah.
I got a industry room residency.
Yeah.
And a lot of those shows were at Greenwich. So I was like hanging around there. And then Eric started reaching out to me after that.
Oh, that's awesome. Because that's the thing that I always try to like convey to the listeners is the whole idea of, because it's this weird thing where I'd been doing comedy for a long time and then I moved to New York. And the fatal flaw that I had was I was like, oh, I've been doing comedy over 10 years. I'll just hang at the stand in the cellar. And then they'll be like, hey, do you want to get up? And so I didn't hang at the smaller clubs.
Yeah.
Which was a huge detriment.
Yeah.
Because then all these people are getting passed that are very funny.
Right.
And I'm looking around like, why am I not getting my shot?
I'm not passed at Greenwich.
And well, you know what I mean? Like doing shows and stuff. And I'm like, why am I not getting booked more at clubs? And people are like, because you're hanging out at the most famous club in the world. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? And I was like,
it's important for the future, I think. I think there's value in it. I don't, because I have a hard time socializing as it is. I'm not going out of my way to do it more. But in theory, like to get past the cellar, you need what? 2 current references. Yeah. So like if you're friends with all them and you're building other things outside of the cellar, like eventually that's great. It's not like it was a waste of time, but hanging around the cellar is not how you get past the cellar when you first moved to New York. It's just...
But that was the thing, was I was like, I'll just hang at the stand in the cellar. And then someone... And it has had its benefits. Like I go to the stand a lot to the point where what you're talking about similarly, where I'm not technically past there, but I am. If you Google me, getting like booked, I am in the comedies thing, and like
Doesn't that mean you're past?
The comedians thing? No, because I'm not on the main page. Like if you go through the website, you can't find me. But if you Google me, it comes up. I see. Can click the link, and it'll be like stand comedians, Brennan Tassif. But hopefully nobody there listens and they're like, oh, we have to fix that. Like, take that down.
That was actually an accident.
There was an oversight because he was on one show. But I do go there enough to where like if someone doesn't show up or like especially in the summer when a lot of people are gone, like the manager will come up and he'll be like, yo, can you host?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I'm not Pat. He goes, that's not what I asked. I said, can you host?
That's nice.
So that's been really beneficial. But also it's one of those things where I have friends that I've met through open mics and stuff, and they're passed at like 3 or 4 clubs.
Yeah.
And they're smaller clubs, but it's still like, yeah, but they're getting way more stage time than I am.
They're getting multiple bookings in advance with the veils.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like spending $40 on pizza at the stand just to hang out. And it's like, well, who's really winning then? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for you, you did the industry room and then you started getting more spots. And then have you since then, because you said you didn't make like a life adjustment, but since then, have you been like, oh, this is what I'm doing now?
I would say it has been a slow transition, and hopefully by the summer, I will be making like a full-time-ish like shot at this.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Giving up a corporate salary for comedy. What can go wrong?
Nothing.
Honestly, nothing, because
what's
the salary if I jump out a window, right?
Yeah. Well, that's I would love to use that as a clip, but we can't talk about deading ourselves.
You can't?
No, they do shadow banned.
Oh, okay. If I lean out a window just to get some air, you know?
Yeah,
feel the wind blowing in my face in a very dramatic way, as if I were jumping out of an airplane.
As if I was going 225 miles an hour towards the ground. It's an interesting thing, too, because it's like Ryan Thomas was telling me about this. He was on the West Coast and he had a corporate job, really funny comic, friend of the show. And he was like, yeah, I just saved and saved, but comedy's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So then I left and I moved to New York and I just did comedy. And in my head, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Like I talk to people like my family and they're like, yeah, but you've wanted kids since you were like, I've wanted kids since I was 12. So like since my parents got divorced, I was like, oh, I want to have kids. Because I'm going to do this better. But I was like,
because I can fix this.
But like, so I'll talk to my twin sister and she's like, you've always talked about.
You have a twin sister?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
She's like, you've always talked about having a family. Like, you know, you can still like, you're only 35. Like you can leave all this comedy nonsense behind and like move back home and like start a family. And I'm like, but I can't.
You can't.
It's like there's something, and I was talking about this with Malia. There's something like profound. That sounds pretentious, but
it doesn't.
It's a calling to a sense where like, even when I was drinking and like left the stage for a few years, because I used to get drunk on stage and I was like,
love that.
When I relapsed, I was like,
what could go wrong?
I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
So for 3 years, because I couldn't get sober, for 3 years I didn't touch a stage. I still identify it as a comedian. Mm-hmm. Like I still was like, that's what I do. And like, I'm not doing it right now, but that is who I am.
That's what I will be doing.
Yeah. It's like, I can't, if I stopped doing that, I would resent everybody.
I also like, there's nothing else. I talked about this in therapy this morning, my third therapy session of the week. Everything's fine. We're doing great.
We're doing great.
We just lean out of windows, you know? I'm kidding. It's all a joke.
It will wake you up though. I live on the 25th floor and there's no screen on my window and they open all the way. So there are some nights where I'm like, I'll open the window and I'll just lean. Like open like this. You don't have intrusive thoughts along with that? You're not you're not like, meh. Literally the line on stage is you don't know about intrusive thoughts till you live on the 25th floor. And lean out a window. The windows open up all the way. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty good indicator. Because I'm like, yeah. You know, and I get like that weird feeling in the pit of my stomach where I was like, I am going to jump. Don't jump. It's like, it's more just like, I could. Yeah. Like, what if I did? Like, what? So anyway, I was talking about with my therapist this morning that there's nothing else that puts me in a flow like comedy does, and there's nothing else that can shift my mood. Yeah. Like there's nothing else that every single time I do it, no matter how I feel walking into it, I walk out feeling better. Yeah. There's nothing else in my life that 100% of the time I feel better after it, including if like, even if I like don't do well. Like if I don't crush on stage, I still feel like better than when I went on stage. Oh yeah, because you did it. It's like, it's a different state of mind. It's like a completely different. It's totally, I say this all the time. I've had shows and it's one show. It was my going away show in Jacksonville. Rain Dogs, shout out to Rain Dogs. And I invited everybody because it was like, this is the last show I'm going to do. And then I'm moving and everyone came out, friends from work, like everybody. In fact, it's the set I was using to clip for the longest time because it was like a 20-minute set. And I remember getting on stage and it was shaking. The stage itself was like you could feel the vibration because everyone was like, ah! And I was like, but I get that same feeling, like the feeling of euphoria I had in that moment. I get that same feeling at a show with like 10 people. Yeah. And you say a joke that you've been working on and kind of tweaking, and then a line will pop in your head as you're saying it, and you say the line and it hits. Yep. And like that same like, 100%. I did it. I fucking elicited a reaction out of words,
Yep.
out of the thin fucking air. I got all of you in unison to do this thing, which is laugh. And like
you've got a real God complex around it that I don't think I have, but
No,
I
but
hear
it's like
you. Yeah.
I say all the time,
It is an energy thing. Like you own the energy in the room when you're on stage.
And
it is the fucking best.
Ah.
There's nothing like it.
I want to get to some stories with you since we got about 20 minutes left. When did you first start? So you grew up obviously in Florida.
Yeah.
Were you a popular kid in school?
Yes and no. Like I was in a popular group. I was never like the person.
Okay.
And I would say like I wasn't cool, but I was in the cool group.
Yeah. Got it. So did you go, when you were in high school, did you do a lot of partying and stuff like that?
I was a fucking nerd in high school, but maybe like 11th or 12th grade, I started drinking occasionally. And every time I drank, I got like fucked up.
When did that happen? Do you remember the first time?
My friends and I all got drunk together for the first time.
Okay. So it wasn't was it a party or was it like a planned event of like, we're going to do this?
Yes. It was like we were all at this person's second home ranch. And yes, I grew up in an insane place. And we all were like, this is the night. And we all got like fucked up. Everyone was like throwing up in pots and pans.
Yes.
I remember like waking up in the morning just being like, I gotta get out of here. Like, how do I get home? Like, I'm gonna die.
Anxiety that comes with
just like sweating and nausea. I was probably still drunk. I'm sure I was still drunk. I was like 15.
Like that so often.
Yeah.
We were like, and because it does something, I don't forget the chemical in your brain that affects your happiness or
serotonin.
Your serotonin. When you drink way too much, it boosts your serotonin, but then it crashes
your
like super
it also
dopamine.
Dopamine hits,
And so when you wake up, like as someone, me, who has anxiety, like I have severe anxiety.
Yep.
So when I would wake up out of a blackout, it would be like
it doesn't feel good.
It's like unimaginable. Like throwing up, but not because of anxiety, not because like
what did I say? What did I do? What have I done?
Freaking out.
What relationships did I ruin today?
Like shaking.
Yeah.
So that happens, and then you said 11th, 12th grade, you guys would do that on occasion.
They would definitely drink, and then I became less friendly with those people because I was like, I was working hard.
Yeah.
I started Adderall in 9th grade. I became like a huge nerd. Life kind of just clicked into place, you know.
Adderall, was that prescribed, or was that
Yes, it was prescribed. Yeah. My whole family has ADHD, and honestly, probably autism, but only the ADHD is diagnosed so far.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, after our rant on football, I think it's pretty...
You're like, I actually diagnosed you. You're definitely autistic. That's the funniest shit ever. You're right. Until 2015, the DSM, diagnostic criteria, did not allow both to be diagnosed.
Oh, really?
You had to choose a primary diagnosis, ADHD or autism. And now they're finding in early studies since then that probably like 3/4 of people who have one have both.
Yeah.
So you are more likely than not to have both than you are to have one.
Wow. That's nuts.
So like it is more likely than not statistically that I have autism.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. We're just going to
write it out.
Keep playing it out, you know?
So the ADHD thing, that was something your family was aware of?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing is I came from my parents were from the Midwest. Mm-hmm. We're Eastern European by blood, so it was a lot of, and we're second generation. We're like, my grandma's still been in the country 70 years, tells the thickest accent you've ever heard. Mm-hmm. Like, whenever I go to see her, we speak a lot of, we speak Serbian as much as we speak English. Wow. And I still only know how to say like 10 things. But it's the stuff that we talk about. Like, do you want this? And then I say,
do you want this food? Yeah.
But it's interesting to me because it was like, you don't go to doctors. We don't go to doctors. Why are you crying? I'll give you something to cry about.
Interesting.
Like we don't, know what I mean?
That's like neglectful.
But it was a toughness thing, and it was just from the environment that
it's just a toughness thing.
People were raised in. I don't want to start throwing daggers, but
it's not daggers. It's just a fact.
Well, and it's just an interesting thing because I always thought I had such a hard time focusing, and I was like, if I could just sit down and write this paper, I'd be good. Mm-hmm. And I didn't take Adderall until like my sophomore year in college when I bought it from a buddy. And I remember being in the computer lab, looking at other people who were like writing papers and studying, being like, have you guys tried Adderall? Have you guys tried Adderall? This is like the greatest fucking thing. I am so hyper-focused.
And they're like, we're all on it, actually.
Everyone's like, yeah, dude, like chill.
like, welcome.
I was like, this is the greatest thing. So I could imagine, like, as a freshman in high school,
Yeah.
it's like you're putting everything into, like, overdrive.
Oh, it really kicked off an insanity in me that really hasn't stopped since.
Oh, really?
Of just, like, this drive of, like, I can do it all, perfectionism. I can, so I will. But where do we start from here?
So we were at 9th grade. You start taking Adderall.
Doing well? Yeah.
11th grade, you start drinking. And then where did you end up going to college?
I went to UPenn.
Second Ivy League person in a row.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Malia went to Columbia.
Wow.
You know who also was a UPenn graduate?
Who?
Very funny comedian, Ben Frank.
I didn't realize that. Yeah. Benjamin Franklin. Yeah.
We have nothing but Ivy League. No, Ben Frank, the comic.
I know, but I'm saying Benjamin Franklin is also like the Quaker baseline of Penn. It's like Penn's.
Isn't he the fucking mascot?
It's a Quaker, but like there's statues of him and quotes of him all over campus. So I thought you were making a Benjamin Franklin joke, but you weren't.
So the Adderall helps. This is
the Adderall.
A promo for Adderall.
The Adderall helps. The Wellbutrin helps.
Wellbutrin. God, I haven't heard of that since I went to rehab.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, welcome back. Great drug. Another good upper. My heart rate's doing great. In college... Is that what you're going to ask me?
Yeah. So when you get to college, are you like...
I'm drinking.
Yeah. That's where I wanted to go.
By the time I made it to Penn, I was like, okay, I achieved what I set out to achieve.
Yeah.
So like I
First year, are you living in the dorms?
Yeah.
And then when you show up, since you were so hardworking in high school and stuff...
But everyone was.
When you show up, are you like, let's fucking go?
Yes, but pretty much everyone was, right?
Yeah.
It's a bunch of kids who have never gone wild and all like worked really hard to get to this place. And we all get there and we're like, all right, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, it was definitely different from high school for me.
Yeah. And this was an interesting point Malia brought up going to Columbia, was that when she got there, and I wonder if it's the same at Penn, I would assume so, it was all smarter kid. It was all...
Of course.
But that's what I'm saying is like there was no like, popular kids versus like it was all basically, for lack of a better way to phrase it, all the nerds got together.
A bunch of fucking nerds.
And now they're just nerding out.
There were still definitely like nerds who never left the library.
Yeah.
Who like I probably never met. There were 10,000 undergrads. Like I probably never met any of those people. And then there was like 30% of the school that was in Greek life.
Okay.
Who were probably arguably like the less nerdy nerds. But like we were all fucking nerds.
But everyone at the end of the day is nerds.
Just except the athletes who I also never met. You know?
Love it.
Even they had to be some level of nerd.
Well, they have to be some level of, like I played sports with those kids because I went to an IB school.
Right.
So a lot of the, like on a lot of the different teams, these kids were like, yeah, I'm going to go play at fucking Harvard. And I'm like, fucking have it. I'm going to Florida Atlantic, baby.
Joke's on you for Harvard, not you. But yeah, it was definitely a bunch of nerds who were like, yeah, let's fucking drink. And
how does that go? Like when you first get there, like do you remember because this is why I asked, is because I have such a vivid memory of showing up to college, putting my bag down. And then as soon as my uncle and my roommate's dad left, he looked at me and he was like, so you want to get high? Like I remember exactly how that happened. Yeah.
Yeah. For
just
sure.
Showed up.
I wasn't doing drugs.
Okay.
Yet.
Well, the prescribed ones, but not.
That doesn't count. That's not a drug. That's a medication. That is not the same thing. If I give my Adderall to somebody...
Oh, that's probably the greatest line I've ever heard on this show.
Wow, what a fucking honor.
Oh my God. That's not a drug. That's a medication.
It is. If I take it as prescribed or abuse it slightly, as long as I'm not snorting it, it's not a drug. I
was going to ask you.
I've never once. Because why would I? I get the same fucking effect if I swallow it. Like, what's the point? I can wait.
Oh my God, that was fantastic. So you get to school.
Yeah.
And you start drinking almost immediately. Now, what's the next? Do you try any other substances, I guess is the question?
I tried weed for the first time maybe the year before I got to college.
Okay.
And the summer before.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
And, you know, everyone was like, you'll never get high the first time. You won't get high. You won't get high. And then I was like ripping a bong, being like, that's what everyone's passing around. I'm not going to get high. And I got so sick. Like I have, first of all, never been higher since. And second of all, like I ended up no vision. No, like completely disoriented, spinning,
My God.
Naked in a shower actually fully clothed in a shower with the water running over me, being like, I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die.
You totally went over the deep end.
I mean, yeah, I was like ripping a bong at like 16 for no reason, you know?
Oh my God. That's the same thing happened to, I had Austin Sheridan on the show. Same thing. He like smoked way too much the first time, and he was like taking his clothes off because he's like, there's something on me.
It was
There's
just
something
like
on
so
me.
sick. I needed to be under the water. I was just like crying. It was awful. So then I was like, I hate weed, which then I didn't revisit until like sophomore year of college, when I started hooking up with my first drug dealer of college.
Yeah.
And he smoked weed because he dealt weed.
Yeah.
And so I would occasionally smoke weed, but it still wasn't something I was like into.
Yeah.
Until the end of college, when I was like, oh shit, I'm moving to Seattle. That sucks. I better smoke, because what else am I going to do there?
So you got a job right out of college?
I got a job October of my senior year of college.
Okay, so you were already all set.
Yeah, the whole year.
That's such a different... I love... This is one of the reasons I love the show, is because that's like, so many people have so many... I love stories, and so many people have so many different ways to where we got like to that room in Greenwich Village, like doing the same thing that we both are incredibly passionate about. And we had such a different path to get there. So this has always fascinated me. So like, are you doing internships, or like how does... This is going to sound so fucking asinine. How does that work to get a job like right out of college?
So I was doing internships every summer. I've never not worked. Like I've never taken a minute off since I was probably like, maybe my whole life. I don't even know. Like I was in organized
Adderall
camps, and then basically,
14.
But also like I was one of 4 kids. So we were like always doing shit. Me too. Really?
Yeah.
Where are you in the 4?
Me and my twin are the youngest.
I'm the youngest too.
She's the baby because she's 30 minutes behind me.
Did you get different treatment because she was 30 minutes behind you?
No. I say it all the time. My sisters were the favorite. I wasn't
the favorite.
My older brother's probably the blackest of the black sheeps, and he's the one who went to Cornell. But I grew up in a Midwest family, so sports...
That makes him a fucking loser. Yeah.
Sports trumps athletic, or athletics trumps education. So because I played Division I football, that was kind of my saving grace. But then I became an alcoholic, and then everyone in my family was mad because I openly talk about my sobriety, and they're kind of like, all right, back off. Like, chill out. My older sister's far and away the favorite. She was the one who got the marketing degree and became an executive out of college and all that stuff. And then me and my twin sister, you know, they like us. They love us, but we're not.
My parents were just done parenting by me. They were just they were over it. It was game over. Like they were just done.
Well, and you're not, because I'm a twin. It was one of those weird things where it's technically like having 3 generations, but just 2 are in the same one.
Yeah, no, not me.
But you were the 4th.
Yeah.
On the way out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, not even on the way out. Like, they would leave me for weeks at a time in high school. I'm not even exaggerating. They'd be like, you got the 12 animals we have, and you'll bring yourself to school and, like, get yourself to your standardized test and your sports. And, all right, we'll see you in a month.
We'll see you in a month.
And, like, I never threw a party. When I say I was a nerd, like, I was a fucking nerd. Like, I would just take care of the house. And, like, I basically was, like, managing a household and going to school.
You're a sweetheart.
No, I was a loser with, like, way too much responsibility for no reason.
As someone who didn't, I mean, I didn't have a lot of responsibility, but I also didn't have friends.
Yeah.
So I understand that, like, I would be, like, if everyone could leave and I'd just be like, okay, I guess I'm just going to play games, video games, and, like, go to bed.
I was like, I'll do homework all night.
Yeah. It's like, I was like, I had that same mentality, though, to the extent of, like, I'm not going to, like, call people over to party. Like, I don't have, like,
what am I going to do here? Yeah.
So for you, the college thing, you end up like interning, and then you have a job all lined up right after college.
And then I started interviewing. I think I applied to a job in like August of my senior year of college. Wow. I thought I was going to law school. So the job part was like, Did you take the
LSAT?
I did take the LSAT.
What did you get?
I believe I got either a 169 or 171. I was routinely testing. Cut this out because I'm a loser. But I was routinely practice testing, getting 176 to 178. So when I landed in the low 170s, I wasn't thrilled.
Yeah, that pissed me off.
Yeah,
I got a 164, and I was
That's
stoked.
Awesome. Yeah, that is a phenomenal score.
Well, not
it is
to you.
I mean,
well, and then I started watching
I didn't even go to law school, so
neither did I. I was like, I'll take a semester off, and then that turned into a lot longer. I started watching Suits, and then everyone's talking about like you need a 171 to get into Harvard. And I'm like, fuck off!
Yeah,
I got a 164. That's a great score.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. I have a funny cocaine story for you. Actually, quick one. First time I ever saw cocaine was freshman year of college.
Yeah.
I like walked into someone's bedroom or maybe it was sophomore year. I went a whole year without seeing cocaine. And then sophomore year, at the beginning of the year, I like walked into someone's room in a frat house and there was someone doing coke and I screamed.
You screamed?
I was like so alarmed by the whole situation. I was like what? And then, because I'm a nerd. And I was so panicked about it. And I didn't try it, I think, until 2 years later. The thing about me and cocaine is it does nothing to me.
Oh, really?
Because I take so much Adderall.
Adderall, it doesn't affect you at all.
It's the same. It literally just numbs my throat. I get no high. It's literally just money up my nose. Like it has no benefit.
What a waste. That's what I used to feel the same way about drinking with Adderall.
Oh.
Because it was like, I'm either going to do Adderall or I'm going to drink. Like I'm not going to drink because my whole point of drinking was to get that effect, to get the effects of, the frontal lobe, like kind of shutting down.
The depressive
and, relaxing. So if I was taking Adderall, I would have to drink and it still wouldn't do anything. And I was like, this is
until you're blacked out, which is why I blacked out all of college.
So because you were taking your Adderall
constantly because I needed it to stay awake. Like, yeah.
But then you would drink on it.
Always.
So you would just go from functioning to lights out. Wow.
Yeah, day after day. For a few years,
Sam.
Yeah, and it was wild. It was an interesting decision of mine. I look back at that and I'm like, what? Like, I would just wake up in random people's beds. Not random, but not intentional.
Yeah, people you knew, but you didn't want to know.
Yeah, like there was a point where I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. There was a point where, on any given day, I was waking up in one of two beds of two best friends who lived on the same hall in the same frat house. Not intentionally. I wasn't intentionally hooking up with either of them. And I didn't go into any night being like, this is who I'm going home with.
Yeah.
I would wake up and be like, which sheets are these?
Wow.
Or be like, oh, there's a dog in here. That's this guy. Yeah. So that was a fun, and I was like blacked out. I'm not saying it wasn't consensual. I'm sure I was consenting, but like, but
that's how you know it's true. I'm sure I was consenting.
Just like I would have hooked up with either of them, not blacked out.
No, I get what you're saying.
That was, so yeah, I would just go from like functioning to lights out, and I'd wake up and be like, oops. Do it again tonight. Like, same time tomorrow? Cool.
So, because obviously now, you don't still drink like that, obviously.
Oh, no. Yeah. But like I just grew out of it.
Okay.
Now I smoke, but I don't drink.
Okay. So you don't really just drink at all?
I will. I'm just like, it has no pull. Like I work in a wine business and I have tons of wine at home and I like stare at it all day and it has no pull for me.
Yeah, that's a fascinating thing because we were talking about, obviously you working with wines and stuff before you came in. So I was wondering if like you were still in that mindset of like, oh, I got to open up a whole bottle of wine. But you're just like, nah, I'm
It just doesn't even, every single time I choose a joint over wine.
Wow.
100% of the time.
See, and that was the thing. It was interesting you brought it up earlier about the getting so high the first time. Because I always Dare kind of worked on me about drugs.
Me too.
Because when I first saw cocaine, I had a visceral reaction. Yeah. I was a freshman in college and someone pulled it out and I was like, you can't do that. That's like from the movies. Like that, people die over that. Like I'm an athlete. I can't be around that stuff.
That's fair though.
And then come to find out a lot of athletes were doing
everyone.
But, yeah. But I was like, why do you hit so hard? And I was like, that makes sense. But it was the same thing with weed where I was like, no, I don't. Like when Sean Michael Murphy, the pirate, friend of the show, when he was like, do you want to get high? Or like, let's get fucked up? And I was like, no, man, I'm more of a drinker. He goes, well, let's go get a bottle of rum. And that was the thing was he was the smoker and I was the drinker. And the few times I would smoke with him, I was like, I don't like this at all.
But like either you weren't smoking the right weed,
that's what I hear,
or you were trying to keep up with him.
Yeah, we were doing gravity bonks is like the first time.
You can't do that.
Yeah,
you can't do that. Yeah, I always now if people are smoking with me, I'll always say, do not go hit for hit with me. Like you're welcome to have as much as you want, but don't think that we're on the same page here because we're not. Like I'm not going to feel this and you're going to die.
Machine.
It's not that I'm a machine. It's just that I'm smoking so much weed that I don't get very high.
Yeah, exactly. It's like me with drinking where I was like, if you try to drink with me, you're
going to die. You're going to feel like shit.
Yeah. Or like literally you
might
could
quite literally die. Yeah. But like me at pretty much this size, like I could keep up with full size men in college. That's how much I was drinking.
Fuck yeah.
Sure. I mean,
we're not proud of it.
I didn't have to go to rehab. So like.
Yeah. Right. I've been to too. So
yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, my ex, before we broke up, when we were together during COVID,
his
desk was in Yeah, in my bedroom, and my desk was in like the living room.
Yeah.
And one day I walk into his office, aka my bedroom, and he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna see Kim, his drug dealer. I think she's gonna stop by today." And I said, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I need some cocaine because like I think I'm gonna start microdosing cocaine." And I laughed just like that, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Thank you." And he's like, "Yeah, like I've been having trouble focusing at work, and I'm mid-pandemic lockdown with an alcoholic while this conversation's happening."
Oh my God, that's insane.
And I was like, yeah, I don't think microdosing cocaine is a thing because you can't dose cocaine. That's called a line.
Doing cocaine.
And if you want to microdose it, I think that's called a key bump. Like,
bump,
I think that's not a dose. Like that's a small line. He didn't love that answer.
A small line.
It's a small line. It's not a microdose. He didn't love that answer.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah.
This was fun.
This was fun.
Plug everything one more time.
Come see New Money Comedy Show at Halyards the last Wednesday of every month. And in Brooklyn. And find me on social media at Sam Kochman.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. At Brennan T. Comedy on all social media. BrennanTComedy.com. Check out the one-man show up on YouTube now. Ex-Drinking Buddy. A Comics Look at Life, Near-Death, Recovery, and Redemption. And we'll talk to y'all next week. That's it.
Woohoo. Wow, how fun.